Very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Broom. This is the CBC Evening News. Well, more details are emerging about yesterday's meeting between Environment Minister Dr. Dennis Lowe and waste haulers regarding the controversial tipping fee. The Environment Minister provided some insight, although he notes that both parties have agreed not to comment on the immediate issues on the table whenever possible, given the nature of the discussions. Dr. Lowe says he is extremely pleased with the level of talks, and he's added that the waste haulers have agreed to continue collecting waste from essential services while the discussions are ongoing. The Environment Minister made the comments on this morning's CBC's radio program Talk Your Talk on Quality 100.7 FM.
They have committed themselves to ensuring that the essential services are treated to. I don't want the public to believe that we made a demand that in order for us to talk, we must go back to work, because it's my view that that really is not the best spirit with which you should pursue any negotiations.
Right.
You have to be open-minded, you have to be fair-minded, you have to be sensitive to the real issues, and I think that they have been able to present us with some real issues as they see it impacting on how they go forward. We have been able to present them with our issues in terms of how we can make adjustments to the current situation, and I think together we've agreed that we're going to go forward on that basis.
Minister Lowe says the preservation of the environment and the careful disposal of waste has to remain paramount as talks continue. He says the issue for most haulers has not been the $25 per ton charge, but more so what people would be asked to pay should they fall short of a full ton. He says government is willing to review it.
Let me say that that is one of the challenges with the tipping fee, as presented by the waste haulers. Because in essence what it is, that if you go to the waste scale with 1.2 tons, you will be charged for 2 tons, because it's $25 per ton or any part thereof a ton. That's what the law says. Now, I think in the spirit of seeking to ensure that this is a win-win situation for everybody, government has to continue to sensitively look at and review this particular element to ensure that the best possible arrangement is put in place.
As those in the tourism sector continue to cry out over the impact of the sargassum seaweed, fishermen are also complaining about the effect on their livelihood. Lisa Lord went to Consett Bay in St. John to find how fishermen there have been coping with the influx of seaweed.
John Herwood, better known as Barbara, has been a fisherman for more than 50 years. But since he first went on a boat in 1962, this is the worst fishing season he has ever experienced. And it's all because of the sargassum seaweed.
You had season that like you catch fish like, but you're still catching fish. You didn't catch it every day or regular, but you will still catch a couple of fish. I never see so yet. There's boats going out and they can't get near the flying fish. They had a boat gone in the ocean from here yesterday. I understand you get 2 flying fish. Just now here there on the radio, and you ain't getting near one every day.
The veteran fisherman also explains why he thought the flying fish were not coming.
I feel the barmets, the Mars is what got the flying fish thing away. Barmets, you know, like different fish. Because flying fish is a very terrible. You don't stand for nothing chasing it, lagging, especially in small dolphin. You like the lag boat, and flying fish ain't going to stand for that, they're clear. If a bigger dolphin come in carry them, they will mostly stick around. You still get a couple of flying fish, but then small dolphin is big trouble.
While the flying fish are not plentiful, the seaweed has been attracting dolphins. But Herwood's son, Chad, who has been fishing for more than 20 years, says many of those dolphins are young and should not be caught.
I don't feel right if you look at the fish at we're only 4 or 5 pounds when you know it took a couple of months there and we're 20, 30 pounds. So I don't believe in catching a small dolphin. Yeah, it's grown pretty fast in a few months. They say maximum lifespan of a dolphin is 18 months, so to get to that full mature age, take 18 months.
While the fishermen have been having a rough time, the story seems to be quite different for the divers. Raymond Chow says it doesn't affect him. In fact, it has been working to his advantage.
What I find is the moss bring in a lot of other fish too, which is beneficial for me. So it really not bothering me unless it come right here in the surf, as if you took a film about here, you will see that it will affect the boat that I with. But me as a diver, not affecting me at all. Not affecting me.
And with the seaweed in abundance, those around the market have been finding ways to utilize it.
Some of the guys pick up the moss from the beach and fertilize the orchard with it, and run all the fruit trees and help farm as a mulch, because as we know, no rain and falling.
As for when the seaweed will stop washing ashore, the older fishermen say you can't stop nature, and it's a cycle which will come to an end in its own time. Lisa Lord, Cbc News.
Thanks, Lisa. Barbados' children must be treated as human beings if they are to grow up to be useful members of society. This suggestion from Minister of Education Ronald Jones. Speaking at the opening of a restorative practices training seminar for the island's principals and deputy principals, Mr. Jones said methods of punishment used in the past have not been successful.
There are persons who keep telling me that we must beat. We call it nicely corporal punishment. Minister, when the Education Act is amended, please ensure that people still have the right to beat. And I keep saying no, because I have not seen any change in behavior by beating upon anybody. I've never seen it. You have a suppression of the behavior for a time, but there's a development of a lot of anger in many of our young people as a result of that brutality.
Mr. Jones also says schools are not all to blame for the issues facing the island's youth. He believes the process of raising a child starts at home, and as a result, people must take greater care when contemplating parenthood.
There are some parents who should never have conceived. Should never have conceived. The physical ability to reproduce is what it is. But beyond that, there are a whole other set of emotions and practices that are important to the reign of a child.
The Restorative Practices Workshop is part of a greater project entitled Impact Justice. Funded by the Canadian government, it is aimed at addressing deficiencies in the justice system of CARICOM. High Commissioner for Canada, Richard Hanley, highlighted the timeliness of the workshop as countries worldwide seek to find alternative methods of discipline.
At a time when much of the international and national dialogue is focused on conditions that put young people at risk, and at a time when we face increased delinquency among youth, it is important to put in place the processes, tools, and skills available to build a more positive school environment for the growth and enrichment of young people.
A clinical psychologist has put forward a proposal to address behavioral problems plaguing the school system. Dr. Dahlia Gibson says it starts with teachers being more responsible for identifying signs of depression in students. Speaking on today's edition of Morning Barbados, Dr. Gibson said she wants more training in this area for teachers. She explains it could help to nip these issues in the bud, especially in cases where children are acting out in the classroom.
Children who are depressed generally in classes will be the ones who are not paying attention, who have difficulties with concentration, whose grades are dropping significantly, and the teachers are really the first responders to these children when they leave the home. And I think it's their responsibility to some extent to get that training, to get that kind of training to deal with those kinds of behaviors.
Her comments come as Barbados marks May as Child Month. It also follows last Friday's suspected hanging suicide of a 12-year-old. Dr. Gibson says there are signs parents can watch out for.
Generally with children, you want to make sure that they're not saying goodbye to people in a very permanent way. You want to make sure to check and see if they're giving away things that are prized possessions. So your son, he loves his PlayStation 3, and all of a sudden, you know, he gives it to his cousin to keep forever. Those are some kind of things that raise red flags. The romanticizing of death. What would it be like to be dead, and maybe my life would be better if I'm dead. So you have to really pay attention to those kinds of statements when children are making those kinds of statements, especially when they're depressed and you know that they're depressed.
Meanwhile, the child psychiatrist believes more services are needed for children diagnosed with autism. Dr. Shirley Allen made the comment during an autism workshop at the Cave Hill School of Business yesterday.
And contributing new ideas of gluten-free and diabetic desserts. Shakira Allen.
We apologize for that incorrect video. But Dr. Allen says early intervention can reduce high levels of autism.
Actually going to spend some time speaking about that and speaking about research that has shown lots of promise in terms of interventions that are directed by the parent. That means specifically that parents can be taught en masse different techniques that they can use to improve their child's socialization and to improve their child's communicative skills so that they do better into adulthood.
We'll have more news in just a moment, but first we want to get your take on this question. Do you think fisheries officials should put regulations in place to prevent fishermen from catching young fish? Text yes or no to short code 8111. We'll have the results at the end of the news.
Happy birthday to you, Kurt. Happy birthday to you. Are you looking so fine? Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday.
Shopping in the sky is simply delicious at our mouth-watering brand new Sky Food Court. Our amazing spread includes Little Pleasures ice cream, coffee, and desserts, authentic Asian cuisine at Waldy's Walk, delectable Greek dining at Opa Express, a range of sumptuous Caribbean dishes at Tamarind of the Islands, and the very best of Bajan cuisine and pastries. Compliments Master Chef Peter Edie and his delightful pastry house and Peter Patties. Plus, we've got the world-renowned fast food giant Burger King. You cannot pass Haggett Hall and not join us for a quick, delicious meal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner at our brand new food court. Only at Sky Mall, where, when it comes to great fast food, there are no limits.
Have you ever wondered how diabetes occurs? Well, when food enters your body, it is converted to a simple sugar called glucose. This glucose is taken to the cells that need it for energy by a hormone called insulin. If your cells reject the insulin, the glucose then builds up in the body and type 2 diabetes occurs. For more information on diabetes and how it can be prevented, visit www.gisbarbados.gov.bb or the Barbados Government Information Services Facebook page.
This is Kevin, returning to his childhood home. This is the smell of baked pears, making him feel warm. Then, pie crust, as he wonders if it's too soon to ask what's for dessert. Now, vanilla, reminding him of pep talks with Mom and slightly inappropriate advice from Dad. New Airwick Life Scents in Mom's Baking, the first constantly changing fragrance that acts like real life and says, "Welcome home, Kevy Bear." This is him, secretly loving the name Kevy Bear. Airwick, home is in the air.
With this year's sugar crop at the halfway mark, the 2015 harvest has so far produced just under 6,000 tons of sugar. Peter Thorne has more.
Sugar officials have told CBC that up to Sunday, May 17th, the harvest had produced 5,716 tons of sugar from 63,420 tons of canes that were processed. It has taken just over 11 tons of canes to make a ton of sugar, which is less than desirable and above the usual amount at the start of the crop. This is being blamed on the late start to the harvest, which is expected to produce around 12,000 tons of sugar. Sugar officials say drier conditions have prevailed in the past few weeks, and they are hoping this will continue for the remainder of the crop, which is expected to finish at the end of June. However, the sole operating factory, Portville Factory, stopped production for at least 2 days last week because of boiler tube problems. Barbados is expected to make its only shipment of sugar to the European Union at the end of the crop. Peter Thorne, CBC News.
The Barbados Statistical Service is sending a message to those concerned about its officials coming to their homes for information. This comes in light of the recent incidents where bandits posed as government officials to carry out their crime. The acting deputy director, Trevor David, is urging them to call the department's offices to verify the official who shows up at their door is who they say they are. In an interview with CBC News, he says the situation didn't have a major impact on information gathered for the enhanced continuous labor force sample survey, which is being conducted across the island.
We've been getting calls at this stage to verify that these are legitimate persons. And I want to encourage people to continue doing that where there is suspicion or something of that nature. In recent times, people have, and rightly so, people have become a little more suspicious of because of those incidents, and therefore let us continue to be more vigilant.
Economists and the media are being accused of ignoring the real story behind the plans for developing the green economy. The charge comes from Executive Chairman of the Barbados Agricultural Credit Trust, Dr. Leroy McLean, but he's lauded Prime Minister Fendel Stewart for placing the issue high on his national agenda. He says people are not taking the idea seriously, especially when considering how the effects of climate change can hurt Barbados's economic development.
The media houses are generally more concerned with mere reporting with little in-depth analysis, and there's a paucity of developmental economists amongst us. Therefore, when the Prime Minister goes off to a conference dealing with this issue, the journalists and political commentators are more concerned with who is in the delegation and the cost of the trip than they are with what are the implications for this country and the benefits to be derived from such participation and engagement in international forums.
Despite a resurgence of local theatre within the last decade, one cultural practitioner believes more can be done to help the industry. CEO of the Pinelands Creative Workshop, Rodney Grant, says developmental programs such as those at the BCC have assisted the industry. But he stresses that rising costs continue to be a major challenge for producers.
At present, most of the theatre spaces in Barbados are very expensive in terms of the cost of the venue and then the cost of the technical aspects of hosting the production in terms of lights and sound. And this is one of the things that we have to look at remedying going forward if we want to be able to create that enabling environment again for theatre productions from small theatre companies in Barbados and to be able to boost theatre again at the community level.
His comments came at a press conference this morning where it was announced the Pinelands Creative Workshop will collaborate with Kick Dust Productions and the New York-based Nia Theatrical Company to stage the play entitled Coyotes' Dream. And the director of Kick Dust Productions, Winston Farrell, explains the play, which will run nightly from May 22nd to 24th at the Parkinson School, will also be educational as it will focus on key social issues.
We think that this would be an interesting production because of the issues that it will explore in terms of the whole thing of gangs and drugs. And I think the partnership with the Pinelands is an interesting one because over the years, Pinelands have been working specifically in this community, and they have a national profile as well. So, but the whole idea of drama and theater for community development is one that I am very much interested in.
Well, the Pinelands Creative Workshop has been praised for its work at the grassroots level in communities across Barbados. It comes from 2 international students from the University of York who will be interning at the institution for the next 13 weeks. The interns are set to take part in several events, including the Career and Life Management, which includes speaking to secondary school students, and the climate change program set to be rolled out in the Western community. Shayanika Sonadara, I apologize, is hoping to gain some practical experience to complement her studies. Well, fellow intern Andrea Kay is hoping to strengthen her passion for the environment. And parents of preschoolers who attend the London-born nursery daycare to see their children dressed like real professionals. It's part of the nursery's open day in recognition of Child Month. The students certainly look the part as an introduction into the supervisor of London daycare nursery. The focus of this event was to highlight their theme.
Our team is community friends. We have decided to put the children into groups where they will portray the different community friends in the area. Basically, so we have police, we have postmen, we have nurses, and we have doctors. These people play an important part in the community, so we wanted to highlight these people within our community.
Afterwards, the parents told Cbc News the children made them proud.
It is great because then he would get to understand the different professions that they have in the organizations and what's not. And he would appreciate being as a doctor or a nurse or whatever the case may be.
I feel great. This will show the children what they know in life and what way they want to be in life. So I feel much better that all parents that could come out to see the doctor, the nurse, and the post office. I think that's very important in our society. So I am happy about it.
Senior Child Care Officer of the Child Care Board, Esther Bailey Smith, says the idea was a good one. She adds that parents need to step up and take responsibility for their children's development. According to her, child interaction is the key challenge at the nursery level, and learning through play is essential for children ages 0 through 5. She says the focus on academics should wait until a child reaches primary school.
If a child is not ready to be, they're not mentally and physically developed to cater to the stage that they're at, you can frustrate the child in that you're putting pressure on that child, and the child mentally and physically is not capable of dealing with what you are exposing the child to at that point in time.
Ms. Bailey Smith is also of the view that there is a need for more nursery schools as the number of preschoolers is increasing. Still to come, a look at some of the stories making headlines across the region. But first, a reminder that we want to hear from you on the question: do you think fisheries officials should put regulations in place to